Welcome back to episode 2 of my project house build. In this episode we are going to get the office pretty much finished, and as you can see here, it is looking really good. We've got a few things to cover in this video and I'm going to chapter it below, so if there are certain sections you want to skip to, feel free to. Otherwise, get the kettle on, pour yourself a cuppa and enjoy. The first job on the to-do list since episode 1 was to address the colour and the finish of the front door. It had been painted in a red, it looked like it had been put on with a roller, and unfortunately, as much as I wanted to just buy a brand new one, with all the other expenses at the moment, we were going to have to try and do something with this one, at least for the next couple of months. So I made the decision to purchase some door paint, and I'm going to be honest, I wish it had come out better. But I've learnt a lot and it's night and day from before. But anyway, let's show you the process of giving the door a little makeover. Now I've made the decision to use the lounge as my sort of construction room for the coming months, and I've got a lot of work to do in this room too. I'm not really sure what's going on with the colour of the fireplace stone. It's got like a glittery flake in it which you can't really see on camera, which looks awful, so that's all got to be ripped out. I really don't like the Spanish tiles against the colour, but again, oh man, I feel like there's just so much to do. But for the time being, I don't want to make too much of a mess in here, so I'm going to protect everything and let's start working on this front door. Thankfully, the house was fitted with a Euro style door, so it's got multiple latch systems that secure it. I'm not saying you can't break into these sort of doors, but they're definitely better than the single latch sort of system on the older houses I've had on properties previously. So we're going to remove the door, which is literally, once open, a few crosshead screws, and I would advise doing this with 2 people, but I was on my own, so I was going to have to struggle because they are lumpy old things. But with it removed, we can then get it into the lounge and onto the trusty worktop to begin stripping it apart. With the door completely stripped down, you can see we've also got some Ferrari style body spacers there. So it was now on to trying to smooth this finish off. And again, I wasn't expecting this to be perfect. The door does need to be replaced. Sure, I could have got a much better sander on this, but we were limited time. The door was off, so the house wasn't secure. I'll begin sanding everything down. Armed with some trusty brake and clutch cleaner, I degrease all the door to avoid any reactions with the paint, and then I just need to mark up all the glass because I certainly don't want to blank that off at all. Now the door is looking pretty good, to be honest with you. I'm hoping that the minor imperfections the paint's going to fill, and yeah, let's start laying down some colour. Again, not going to be perfect, especially with the red base. Now I must stress that on the cans I bought off of eBay, it didn't mention anything about using a primer, so we just went on and belayed down the anthracite grey. Whilst the door was apart, it made sense to change the locks. Because I bought the house, obviously, I didn't know who had keys for the front door, and I was going to replace this with a new unit, which is really simple on a Euro lock door. So I chucked that all in whilst it was going back together. With the paint dry enough to manhandle the door back into position, it was finally ready to put it back on the hinges. And I've got to say, for the £20 it cost for the paint, I'm actually really chuffed with the outcome. I've definitely had better finishes working with spray cans on cars and bike paintwork before, and I don't think I'd go the extra hog for buying door paint. In fact, I could have just paid it silver grey because I had some of that from the M3 in the garage. But I think compared to the red, it definitely looks a lot better, and I'm certainly happy with that until we get in the budget to replace it properly at some point next year. With the door successfully back on, I spend 5 minutes looking out the bedroom window. What a view we've got now. The next challenge was to actually start work on my custom desk for the office, and this was certainly going to be a challenge as I wasn't a carpenter, but I had a few tools around the house that were going to hopefully make this a little bit more bearable than doing it all by hand. The problem was, whilst I was also in the loft, I found a box of what I thought would be perfect brand new blinds, and it actually turns out the previous owner had bought these and used the wrong side. But for now, this will do the job until again another thing I can come back to replace. So the plan was pretty simple. I'm going to need to build a custom desk as due to the space within the window bay and a desk that I wanted off to the side, there was definitely something I would need to make rather than be able to go out and purchase. So bear with me on this because it's the first time I've ever done it, and again I'm not a carpenter so I wasn't expecting miracles, but I think a quick trip to Wickes, found some decent wood and begun mucking up some measurements to try and fill that space effectively with the new desk. Unfortunately, the chop saw just didn't have the depth to cut through the thickness of this wood that I'd picked up, so I had to visit my local tool station again to collect a mitre box, and this would allow me to at least cut it by hand. So I did again try it with a chop saw, but it just was never going to cut all the way through, unfortunately, so it's going to be back to the good old manual labour. Now, also unfortunately, during this time when I was building the desk, I'd actually left the DJI camera that I use for a lot of the time-lapse at home, so I don't have a great amount of footage, and again, because it's not something I'm specialist in, I'm not really fussed for making a guide. Hopefully it just inspires someone and intrigued as to how I made it. But yeah, I'm going to let the footage roll now, and you'll see how the desk slowly comes to life. With the desk all assembled, I was absolutely thrilled with the finished piece. Lovely and sturdy and looking really smart. Now, because it obviously was a raw sort of wood finish, it wasn't glass smooth, which wouldn't be great for a mouse. So I have installed a pad, which I'm going to use for the keyboard and the mouse when the Mac eventually moves over. I've also installed my little YouTube light that I got given by YouTube when I hit 25,000 subscribers. Really nice little feature, little neon light. Yeah, really nice touch to be fair from them, especially as we're a long way from the 100,000 subscriber count. And my good friend Matt also bought me an M3 stencil, which we've put up. But now it was on to the main feature wall where all my Lego and picture frames were going to go. Trusty IKEA came to the rescue with the picture frames. I generally find for the price these cost, they're actually really good value, and I've used them on the other wall above the RS125. So I put in another order and it was now just a case of getting them hung and in position. I also purchased some Lego wall brackets. Now I just got these off of eBay. They're not a genuine Lego part, but for the M1000RR mount, it was really cool because it allowed it to sit in a perfect position on the wall. With the Porsche model, however, I actually just ended up marking straight through the chassis of the car and using 2 screws just to hold it back to the wall. And again, if you need to remove it, nothing's permanently damaged. You can just simply unscrew those 2 screws and it will lift away from the wall. I'd had an old IKEA bookcase in the garage for years and I thought, you know what, I think I can actually build something pretty cool shelving wise to go under the desk out of this. So I made the decision to sacrifice it and begin cutting the box in half. And as you can see here, it looks like one of those old school magician chops with a wood saw going through it. But I must admit, I'm actually surprised just how strong this thing is given the poor structure it's made of. With the bookcases under the desk, it was clear I was going to need to extend the desk slightly, otherwise it wasn't going to completely cover them. But whilst doing that, I got distracted and thought, I've got some old pallet wood. I could actually build a nice little feature wall in there. So again, upcycling with the old pallet wood, dropping it down, taking all the nails out of it and painting it red with the leftover red from the feature paint wall. I think it came out as a nice little area, and with that done it was time to add some lighting. So I used some LED lighting strip and a switch under the desk so it can easily be turned on and off just if you want to add that little bit of extra special to the office space. Now I was left with a little bit of a dead space in the corner of the office, and I've got some cool crash helmets, and I figured, well, It's going to look pretty tricky having them up there, especially with the road bikes. I don't use them a great deal these days, so we're going to put them on the mounts. Now, many will say I've mounted this incorrectly, you need to use plasterboard fixing on plasterboard, but to be honest with you, when you're holding something that weighs 200-300 grams, 4 raw plugs in plasterboard is a nice clean way without making a mess of the wall if you want to fill it at a later date, and will hold that way absolutely fine. Again, it's not what raw plugs are built to do. You should use plasterboard fixings, but I just find them too excessive if you're mounting really light things, as they make big holes in the wall when you put them in. I also wanted to get my 3D track stencils mounted that were also used in my previous office, as these are tracks I've done personally, and I really like the effect of them being standoff from the wall. They look really trick and really fill that space nicely. And finally, the trusty JMS sign travelled with me through all my previous offices, and it comes to the new one now. A few years ago, the missus had bought me the McLaren F1 car, the Lego Technique model, and I had this sat on the top of the wardrobe for years. So I'd finally decided to spend a few evenings putting it together so that we could put it on the new mount and finish that corner of the office off. I finally got the pictures ordered for the frames, and it was time to mount one of my old snowboards on the wall and my trusty Hoonicorn that I'd had for years. And that, I would like to say, is a wrap on the office. Obviously, I'm sure there's going to be little tweaks over the coming months, potentially years, but overall, really thrilled with how it's all come together. With the office complete, it was time to move on to the master bedroom. Now, there was a central light in the bedroom which I didn't like the look of or like the way the light was spread out, because with a central point it left you with dark corners. So I picked up some really nice LED lights that you can change the colour of them simply by flicking a switch. Now, we've also got air conditioning going in the room, but we'll come back to that in a later episode. The first job is to get into the loft, and the reason we need to do that before marking out anything downstairs is to ensure that the positions chosen will actually work, because you're going to have joists and potentially other items in the loft. Thankfully, mine was relatively clear with only a little bit of central boarding, which was ideal for storing small things such as Christmas trees and general junk that you keep in a loft. But ultimately, once we'd worked out where the joists were, we could then head back downstairs and start planning where we wanted those downlights to be. Back down in the bedroom, I mark out in a very light shaded pencil exactly where my points are going to be. With that done, I can then use a small 6mm drill bit just to put some pilots into the ceiling, and then run back into the loft to check that everything's fine, and then it's back up again with the hole saw to cut down. With the 3 holes drilled, I now needed to go over to the other side of the room and replicate this with another 3 holes in line with the current one, so that we'd have a total of 6 LED downlights in the room. The previous installer of the old light hadn't done a fantastic job with the wiring, so I did a quick patch up in the ceiling with a bit of plasterboard, and then I got myself some 2-core 1.5 to link all the LED lights up, and then all that was left to do was some painting. With the ceiling finally dry, I can start wiring up the LED lights and clip them into place. All I then need to do is go into the loft and address that wiring. Now, I had a junction box and some Wagos, which is certainly a million times better than it was before. And then it was down to the fuse board to switch on the power circuit for upstairs. And as you can see from the before compared to the after, I think it looks absolutely brilliant. And I've also now got the added bonus of being able to dim these, as these are an LED dimmable bulb. So if you're in bed at night, you can reduce the light and vice versa. So yeah, a really nice job on that. Really thrilled with the outcome on that too. That's a wrap for episode 2 of Project House. In the next episode, I'm going to be installing LED lighting in the hallway, because again, just like the bedroom, I'm really not impressed with the shadows and dark spots with the one central light, or I say central, it's not even central in the hallway. And we're also going to have a go at ripping all the kitchen out and fitting a new one. Now, I'm going to buy a carcass built kitchen, so essentially it should be pretty straightforward, fingers crossed, and then I'll have a specialist come in and do the worktops. But I'm really excited to get that one underway, because I think it's going to really transform the downstairs. The only thing I'm really scared of is the flooring, because I don't know what's gone on there previously, so I assume something's just been laid on top of the current tiles, but we're going to need to rip all that up. And yeah, I'm sure it's going to be full of fun. So if you did enjoy the video, make sure you hit that like button, consider subscribing. Until the next one, thanks for watching.